As the cost of educating children have gone up and the value received has gone down, many parents are now considering homeschooling their children. Let's look at the pros and cons of homeschooling when we come back. Stay tuned. Your child's life may depend on it. Hello everyone, and it's good to have you all on another episode of The Moment Show with Pastor Funke, the show where you learn something new every time. Awesome. Listen, it's wonderful to have everybody here and my amazing audience. From where I sit, you look wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's great to have you come to the Moment Show. Now, homeschooling involves parents educating their children at home instead of sending them to traditional public or private schools. Families have different reasons for homeschooling their kids, ranging from safety of the kids, ensuring the quality of the education those children receive, even the convenience of having them right at home. However, in spite of the obvious advantages, what are the drawbacks of homeschooling? To discuss this with me in the Moment studio is a parent who has had experience homeschooling her boys before enrolling them in a private school. She's here to share her thoughts with us. Deborah Adekoke is a wife and a mother of two delightful boys. She's a lawyer by training and currently leads the Strength Project, an interdenominational missions-focused group that organizes meetings dedicated to equipping the saints. Now, from projects like community outreaches, healing rooms, and equipping retreats, they provide all-round growth and development to the believer. She's also passionate about establishing God's stance on societal issues and does this by speaking on various platforms and through the Strength Project podcast. Deborah believes in pouring out to the next generation, and she does it through active and intentional discipleship and giving materials. In all, Deborah loves the Lord and knows that she's called to make him known wherever she finds herself. Studio audience, please welcome my beautiful guest, Deborah Adegoke. Awesome having you, Debbie. Welcome to the Moment Show again.
My pleasure to be here again, Mom.
Thank you so much. Deborah has been here with her husband, 2 years ago?
Yes.
When you guys came to speak about your work. You do a lot of work with teenagers. Yes. Right, and you're also blessed with two amazing, I tell you, I know that they are amazing boys this year and this year. So I'm really happy that you're here to talk about this. Now, the first thing that I want to ask you is, what motivated you and your husband to decide to homeschool your kids?
One of the primary reasons we decided to homeschool our kids was the fact that everything about the educational system in Nigeria seemed rushed.
Rush.
So kids were off to school some kids before they were 1. And there was this pressure to learn the alphabet, learn the numbers, learn the timetables, learn the states and capitals, so that you see a 3-year-old and the mom is telling you, my 3-year-old can, stay
count to 1,000,
and write to 500. And
yes.
I'm like, what is the hurry?
God bless you.
Children are supposed to be able to learn through play, and I wanted that for my boy.
And I am so happy you said that, Debbie. We used to live out of the country, and when our first, who's now a man, when he was about 3 years old, and actually about 4, and we came back to Nigeria, and they would not put him in his right class because they said he could not read through, I don't know, was it 100 or whatever. And now this is a child that had been in the French school system, and then went into the British system when we were living in Nairobi in Kenya, and he was doing well. And all of a sudden they came, and the first thing we had to do was learn numbers, learn arithmetic. And it just breaks my heart because you said it. Children learn through play.
That's it.
They learn through play, not by cramming. And so
Exactly.
when we get them into this cramming thing, by the time they are adults, that's all they can do. They can just cram. They can't apply
Exactly.
what they learn. Because that's how they learn, is by applying. It's by application.
Yes.
So you then put them in there. But then you decided to move them out at a later time. What informed that decision?
Well, as they grew older, my ability to give them well-rounded, subject-based information, I didn't have as much ability to do that. That would have meant that I was going to spend much more money employing private teachers to come home and do the teaching at home. So we decided to look out to see if there were any schools that could sort of merge our mindset with the traditional system. And lucky for us, we found a school that's, that balances that out. So my kids, for instance, are home by 2. They don't do any extra lessons. On Fridays, they're home by 1.
They're not at school until 4?
No, they're not.
Do they bring like math home at 5?
Nope. My little one, who is 5, has homework only 3 times a week, and none of that homework takes more than 20 minutes to get through. And he does it himself.
Oh, please, somebody help me find it. Now, you see, so this is it. This is it, people at home. You see how reluctant the audience is to clap. Because our mindset is that it should be hard. If it is hard, it's better. And that's why we're getting it so wrong. And Nigeria, and I don't know about other African countries, but I know in this our country, we're churning out people, adults, who cannot, don't let me be nasty on this show. I should not be nasty, but truly,
they can't think.
Did the quality of education play any role in that decision? And I know you kind of alluded a bit to, being able to find, but the quality of education generally in our nation, should more people even be considering homeschooling if they have the time?
Absolutely, especially in the early years. Absolutely. If you and your spouse can afford for one of you to be at home and supervise that system, absolutely, I would advocate for early years, maybe even, if you could, maybe even up to early primary, I would advocate for you to homeschool. It does take a bit of effort, but you get value. You're able to incorporate, one of the things that I was able to do with my boys was incorporate spatial learning. So for instance, in teaching them basic things like prepositions, above, under, I could arrange their toys and then pick this one and then put it under the chair, and then they get the concept of under, and we're playing,
and it looks like
around.
just having play.
Yes, it looks like we're just having
learning
fun.
What's
exactly.
under, what's above.
Exactly. So we learn that ability to learn through play, causes it to stick more. You're able to teach basic principles of reading. I taught both my boys to read. Both of them are reading way above their grade level right now.
Although they seemed to have started later.
Yes, although they seem to have started slower and later than the others. Both of them read. My 5-year-old would probably pass advanced reading tests right now, because we learned through play. We learned through just making it fun. We didn't have to do as much TV as people think. Homeschooling is not about putting your kids in front of the TV. No,
yes.
It's actually about engaging them in everyday activities. We were also able to explore skills like potty training on our own, slow and steady. We were able to, both my kids, by the time they were 3, would clean up their toys themselves. So organizational skills, knowing where things should be. Yes, knowing how things should be done, having a routine and understanding what it means to have a routine. All of those were built into our teaching during homeschooling.
Debbie, I can't see a teacher who has 25 kids.
Never.
In a class, even with an assistant, being able to do this.
No.
How much time on a daily basis did you have to commit to doing this?
About 8 hours, because learning starts from when they wake up to breakfast. We make breakfast together. So today, my boys, if we were going to have pancakes, they'll set out all the ingredients because they know
already
what to
know
do.
it.
Yes. So to breakfast, to cleaning up after breakfast. So by the time my first was 5, he had started washing his plate and helping his brother wash his plate. Basically, like the Montessori system, every single part of our living is involved in learning.
Yes.
And as we move through the day, we're teaching different lessons. So I'm telling you, oh, give your brother, share this between you and your brother, and you're learning division. You're learning addition, you're learning subtraction, you're learning multiplication. Both my boys can say their timetables all the way to 10 because we learnt multiplication by play and by handling things, handling pebbles, handling. So it made it so much easier to teach concepts that would, in the schooling system, would have been much harder, would have been much more painful.
Yeah.
Would have entailed much more crying,
Yeah.
but we just did it easily and through play. We also were able to incorporate things like going to places. So for instance, do you know that in Abuja there is a National Space Museum that you can access with 4,000 naira and your kids can have a complete VR immersive experience with being on a space shuttle or something like that?
Are you serious?
Not too far from
I
here.
didn't know that. Did anybody here know that? A few of us. Most people don't know. Debbie, I see all the good sides of homeschooling, and I join you to say if one of the the partners can actually be at home to do or to homeschool, it's great. But what would this effects? For instance, if you have 2 boys, so it's great. And I don't know if you started with your first one first and
Yes,
then
I
of
did.
course had it.
Yes, I
But is there any drawback to their emotional and or mental health when they are kept away by themselves? And would you speak to that?
Yes, there are. There are social drawbacks of homeschooling that in advanced countries, they've come up with systems to sort of curtail.
Okay.
Here in Nigeria, because it's not yet as popular as abroad, we don't necessarily have those systems. We also have trust issues in Nigeria, so there's that. When you have kids with only their brother, used to their own space, used to having things their own way, they're not as able to relate, they're not as empathic.
And share.
Yes, share, even just express themselves in front of other people as well as in a traditional schooling system. The way the people abroad have sort of intervened in that system is to have social setups where the kids meet up to play a number of times a week, or they all come to have classes in one person's house and then they move to the other person's house after that. So it's like a community thing. They have play dates and all of that. Here we don't have that as much. Everybody's still trying to watch everybody else. So yes, that's a major drawback. And it's one of the reasons why I decided to send my children to traditional school after a while.
Right.
There's also the fact that when children are cut off from the world like that, they don't have the opportunity to test some of the things that you're teaching them in the real world.
Right.
So when you introduce them back into traditional school, they're able to put some of those things you're saying to you. They're
Into
able to see
practice.
how this
Yes.
adds up to this. And even though they were doing those things at some level at home, they're able to see it on a much larger scale with other children. So yes, it does have its drawbacks. I would also state that homeschooling is a bit more expensive, especially as you go further, because all the materials that if you were going to a proper school, the school would have provided, you'd have to provide for yourself. So even though you can DIY many things, it still takes a lot of effort and some. So it's not like I'm going homeschooling my kids, I'm not paying school fees, so everything is free. You're going to have to buy some things. You're going to have to create some
But
things. So
ultimately,
there's that.
though, it should be cheaper in the long run.
Yes, in the long run, it's cheaper. But
Yeah.
at the beginning, when you're buying
Yeah.
and creating,
Yeah.
that might be something.
Okay, so Debbie, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Debbie Adegoke on the subject of homeschooling. So we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, thank you very much, and welcome back to the Moment Show with Pastor Funke. This show truly where you learn something new every time. And I'm back speaking to my guest for today, Debbie Adegoke. Now, Debbie, now that your boys are back in the school system, are you and your husband concerned about the very liberal agenda that's being pushed through schools, you know, and
Yeah.
maybe I don't know if the school your children go to, if it's a you know, it's a religious or Christian school
Yeah.
or whatever, but schools have traditionally been you know, one of the institutions through which people can either form negative or positive. Are you concerned? Are you guys concerned? Because now you've moved them into the world, so to
Yes.
speak. And how are you going? How are you helping to get things like you know, gender issues and misconceptions, or what about, you know, gender and all these things that go on out there?
Yeah. So lucky for us, our kids' school they share the same value that we share. They have traditional Christian values
Awesome.
as a school. But even besides that, because the school's value is one thing, the kids you interact with in class is something else. Different parents from different homes bringing their kids to school. So the school can have a value that somebody in class doesn't exactly. One of the things I generally do as a principal, and I advise parents to do, is not to focus on the negative. Reinforce the positive. So with my kids, I don't tell them, you are not a girl. I just reinforce that you are such a beauty, you're such a handsome boy. You're such a good boy.
Yes.
You know, you're such a, and I just reinforce the fact that you are a boy. I never raise the fact that some boys may be girls, some girls may be, no, I don't talk about any of that. I just reinforce that fact that you are a boy. Enjoy your life as a boy, you know, and so I focus on the positive rather than on the negative, because what happens when we focus on the negative is that it's like
Getting them
reverse
curious.
programming, yes.
Yes.
So you're anything you pay attention to, you're going to form into that image.
How are you going to, because they will certainly,
Of course.
meet up people, you know, the way our children get on social media and stuff like that. They're going to one day come to you and say, you know, this person that I've always known as a boy.
It's
And
now-
what have you thought about what kind of answers you will give?
Of course, that's the day every parent sort of dreads,
right?
and it's definitely going to come, so you might as well prepare for it. So one of the things we also do, we're Christians, like I said before, is we have sort of formed our children's mindsets based on the Word of God. So when that day comes, I'm going to ask them, what does the Word of God say about gender?
That's a
What does
good
the Word
one.
of God say about? We look back at it. This is what the Word of God says. This is what we believe, and this is what it is.
Right.
Now, are we going to demonize the people who have this other mindset? No. That's one thing that Nigerians generally get wrong. They are not bad people simply because they have a wrong mindset. So if you teach your children to approach people with a different mindset, even a mindset they disagree with, from a place of compassion, love, and respect, they are better able to engage with the world around them without, what's the word? The word I'm looking for is not friction, but without necessarily being caustic. That aggressive protectionism comes from a place of lack of understanding.
Yes.
And once a person now gets convinced because they don't have a foundation for what they believe, they can be swayed over. So concentrate on giving your children a foundation for what they believe,
Okay.
teaching them compassion, respect, and kindness, and then they'll be able to express themselves, express their opinions about things without necessarily getting into the mix of it. And then they'll be sure in themselves of what they think
what they
and
believe,
what they know.
because
Yes.
they're sure of themselves.
Yes.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So, Debbie, we only have about 2.5 minutes, and I'd like for us to touch on two questions. How concerned, now that your children are in the private school, they go out every day, how concerned are you about, you know, safety for them when they go and come?
Oh, well, again, I advise parents to put their children in schools close to home. My children...
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
not like go like...
all the way to my children's school is within the estate. We walk to school in the mornings, and I just pick them with the car in the afternoon because it's hot. On a cool day, we then generally stroll home from school if I'm not driving in from somewhere. So for safety, in terms of commute, I'm okay with that. Within the school, they have really strict rules. And if you're a school owner, you should put in place the rules that make for the safety of the children and the peace of the parents. So they have those rules that ensure that, oh, not just anybody can pick up your kids can't go out unattended, and all of that.
Or even exposure. I was speaking to a parent the other day, and the parent, she was explaining that in her child's school, they have to check every bag every morning.
Wow.
And it's a Christian school. They have to actually check. So I was imagining that they must have seen maybe knives or whatever, or pictures or things that kids are supposed to be, and they are not like even in senior school.
Wow.
Right.
That's,
Yes.
well,
Yes.
that's
But
wild.
that's, yeah. So to your point, you really have to get close to your children,
Exactly.
and
And
really get to
homeschooling
know them.
earlier on helps you do that. Helps you
Yes.
build that
That
bond where
bond
they're
where they
able to
can
tell you
talk.
anything. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. So one last question: do you think, now that your children are in the public schools, a private school, and they're out there, do you think that the value of education parents are getting is justified by the money,
Oh my
the
God.
huge salary, I mean, school fees that parents are getting? Is there, because I see many parents these days that are going, the school fees, school fees. In fact, one parent was telling me that the father was almost like, you must be doing something for me to destroy me by taking this kid.
To this
What's your
kind of
point
school.
of view on fees and the quality value we're getting?
Yes. So one of the things, again, I'm going to put 80% of the blame on parents. Stop sending your children to school because you're trying to give them social connections. Let children be children. Let children be children. Right? A lot of my generation went to public government schools, and we had the connections that we need to have.
God bless you.
Trust God with your children.
Yes.
Trust God with your children.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Debbie. Time is so, but it's been wonderful. Hasn't it been wonderful having her here? Yes. Thank you. Thank you for always being a vessel that God uses, and thank you for being here to share with us, very plainly. And I say to all our parents out there, please, let's think about some of these things. Mrs. Deborah Adebuke. God bless you. Okay, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, you'll have an opportunity to ask me one or two questions. Back in a moment. God bless you. Okay, thank you very much. Audience, please stay with us. We're going into the Ask segment, and we have a question from a member of the audience. So go right ahead and ask your question.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Giselle, and my question goes thus. Is there a way the government can enact laws in the educational system to reduce the workload on early years children? When Sister Debbie was talking, I felt like she was talking to me because there was a day I had to cry in my children's school. The workload is too much. At the early year stage, children need to do learning by doing. What is a 2-year-old counting from 1 to 30? What for? Is he selling? Is he buying something? They should learn how hands-on activities. This is what children need. So the African system, Nigeria in particular, they should look into the early years children need to rest. That's what French people do, like Pastor said. At that age, they should learn how to use their hands and do what is relevant. The counting and the spelling, I don't think it's really needful. That's my question, Pastor.
Okay. Well, honestly, I'm not sure government can do much. I think government should have regulations, and I think they have regulations, but I think especially with our case here, is always how do you monitor? We have all these regulations. It's compliance and then monitoring. That's where we always fall short. And you see, if it's public school, governments will be able to go in there because they're in charge of public schools. But when it's private schools, they have very little control. I don't even know if I know they have an association because I was part of it when my children were younger. I was part of it in their school where, they had all these private schools and they have, but I think they are too stretched, the proliferation of schools, if all under the name of public schools, you just all kinds. So, but we should still make this appeal to the Ministry of Education to help us see how, what can be done about monitoring of schools, especially our private schools out there. Some of them, they don't have standards in many, many of the cases. But I will say to you that I think you guys should, consider other schools. It's like this idea, she was talking about everything is so rushed. We want to get them there, we want to get them there. I think that when parents begin to look for alternatives, search for alternatives, and take your children out and put them where the values and the system meets yours, we will force people to change. Thank you so very much. So we are about to close.